Lesson 98.
Usted.
Antonio, in the last lesson, Lesson 97, we looked at several different ways in English that we address someone with a special term of respect, and then along with those special terms of respect, we use a third-person verb. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the word usted and how you would use it in Spanish? Just give us a little bit of background about it and maybe just explain it to us a bit.
Yeah, as you said, Bill, that usted is a special way of respect in where you address someone you're talking to, meaning the second person. You're talking directly to someone. Usually, it varies from country to country. In some countries, people use usted when addressing your parents. In other countries, they don't. They just say tú, which is you, as we learned. But usted is usually used when addressing a college professor or a school teacher, or just some adult. If you're a child or a teenager, and if you want to address an adult that is not related to you, then you use usted, this very special way of addressing someone with respect. Other people that you address as usted could be, let's say you are an adult already, but there is somebody even older than you, or maybe a grandmother or somebody just considerably older than you, then you also treat them as usted. Or it could be someone your age. Let's say you're an adult, but this person you don't know, and you just happen to come across this person. It's very common for people in Latin America to address other adults as usted if you don't know. So tú, addressing someone as tú is used often as just people that you are confident with, people you know and that are your friends or your family. So that's pretty much the idea of using usted versus using tú.
So using usted plus a third-person verb, that's a way to speak that is a bit more formal, and it's a way to show respect to someone that perhaps you don't know so well.
Yes.
Okay, Antonio, let's turn to the next page, page 116, and let's look at the chart that we have here. In this chart here, at the top of page 116, we can see all the different forms of yo soy, and we can see forms like tú eres, él es, and ella es, and nosotros, vosotros, ellos. We can see all the different forms of yo soy and the pronouns. And then we have usted es here in the third-person singular block. On the previous page, we mentioned that the word usted comes from a very old expression, vuestra merced, which means your mercy. So usted really is just sort of a modernized form of saying your mercy in Spanish. So literally, when you say usted es, you're saying your mercy is something. So it's very similar to the things we studied in the last lesson, like your honor or your majesty. It's the same construction. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Bottom line is just usted means you are. So you are in English is just second person, singular. But again, we put this in the third person column because you have to remember, this is very important. You always have to treat it as third person when it comes to forming sentences. So from now on, just remember that.
Okay, we have a few examples here below the chart. The first one is usted es.
Okay, the first example here, usted es, it just means you are. And notice that the verb here is just a third person verb. So we're really treating this as third person, even though it just means you are, which in English is just second person. And in Spanish too would be if we would say tú eres. But very important, we're not saying usted eres. See, eres is the verb that you would use if it was just saying tú, so which is a second person. So here is just proof that everything is treated as third person.
So usted is a special term of respect, very similar to your honor or your majesty. And we would never say your majesty are or your honor are. We would say your honor is or your majesty is. So in English, since we would use a special term of respect plus a third-person verb, you do the same thing in Spanish. Special term of respect, usted, plus the third-person verb, es. Let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, the second example here, we have usted tiene un carro, which means you have a car. The always, the way that you already know how to say this sentence would be tú tienes un carro. Now we learned this special way of saying you, which is usted. You just say usted tiene un carro. Notice that we're not saying tienes as if we used the word tú. We're using the verb that goes with the third person singular, tiene, as opposed to saying tienes. So usted tiene un carro, you have a car. It's like saying your mercy has a car.
So it's that special term of respect plus a third person verb.
Yes. Very important to remember this.
Okay. How about the next one?
Next one, the last example in this lesson. ¿Va usted al centro comercial todas las semanas? Do you go to the mall every week? If you wanted to use tú instead of usted, it would be vas tú al centro comercial, etc., etc. So vas, V-A-S, is the verb you would use in second person. But since we're treating usted as third person, you use the third person verb, which would be just va, V-A. Va usted instead of vas usted. No, that would be incorrect. Just say va usted al centro comercial todas las semanas. It's just like saying, does your mercy? See, does your mercy go to the mall every week?
So again, it's that special term of respect plus a third person verb. Okay, let's take a look at our exercises together. In number 1, the word usted is a special title of respect. Originally, it meant your mercy, and then S is a third-person singular verb of being, which means is. So, literally, usted S would say, your mercy is. But that's not the way a listener would actually interpret it. In a conversation, this would simply be a formal way to say, you are. In number 2, we have the same thing, usted es, that's the formal way to say you are, and el Señor Johnson is Mr. Johnson. In this situation, we are not using the term señor as a name by which to call someone, so we do need the definite article el in front of the word señor. So number 2 will say, you are Mr. Johnson, but it will say it in a formal way. In number 3, we have a question. The words usted and es are a formal way to say you are, but since it's a question, those two words are reversed, and we'll translate those as, are you? And again, we have el Señor Johnson. So number 3 will say, are you Mr. Johnson? In number 4, we have our special title of respect, that's usted, and it agrees with the verb tiene. That's the third-person singular form of yo tengo. Literally, you might translate usted tiene as something like, your mercy has. But since this is formal speech, we'll really interpret that as a formal way to speak in the second person. So we'll translate usted tiene as, you have. Un gato means a cat, so number 4 will say, you have a cat, but it will say it in a formal way. Number 5 is very similar to number 4, except it's in the form of a question. So tiene and usted are reversed. We'll translate tiene and usted as, do you have? And un gato, again, means a cat. So number 5 will say, do you have a cat? In number 6, usted is a special title of respect, and it's being used with the third-person singular verb habla. Usted and habla together literally might say, your mercy speaks. But since this is formal speech, we'll really use it as a way to speak in the second person. So we'll translate usted habla as, you speak. Inglés means English, so number 6 is a formal way to say, you speak English. Number 7 is very similar to number 6, except that it's a question. And instead of English, we have Spanish. Notice that habla and usted are reversed because it's a question. So we'll translate habla usted as, do you speak? Español means Spanish. So number 7 will say, do you speak Spanish? And it will say it in a formal way. In number 8, we have yet another question. The subject of the sentence is usted. That's our special title of respect. And it goes with the third-person singular verb, va. Under normal circumstances, usted and va would say, you go. But here, since it's in the form of a question, we'll translate va and usted as, do you go? A la playa means to the beach, and a menudo means often. So number 8 will say, in a formal way, do you go to the beach often? In number 9, usted is the subject of the sentence. That's our special title of respect. The verb here is va. So usted and va literally might say something like, your mercy goes. But since this is formal speech, we'll really be using it to speak in the second person. So usted and va together will say, you go. Of course, we have the adverb nunca here in the middle of this, which means never. So usted nunca va will say, you never go. Al banco means to the bank, so number 9 will be a formal way to say, you never go to the bank. In number 10, we have a question. Usted is the subject. That's our special title of respect. And it goes with the verb tiene. Tiene is third-person singular. Literally, you might translate usted and tiene as, your mercy has. But really, it's just formal speech, so we'll translate it as though it were second person, not third person. And of course, since it's a question, tiene and usted are reversed in position. So we'll translate tiene usted as, do you have? Unos is an indefinite plural article, which means some or a few, and niños means children. So number 10 is a formal way to say, do you have some children? In this particular case, the word niños means children in the sense of offspring.